And ladies and gentlemen, he's one of the all-time greats, my buddy, Mr. John Wayne.
You're listening to the John Wayne Gritcast with me, Ethan Wayne.
The hell I was.
We're talking all about the life and legacy of my father,
John Wayne.
Mr. John Wayne.
John Wayne is the United States of America.
Slap some bacon on a biscuit and let's go.
Randy Wayne White is a fishing guide turned novelist, best known for his series on Doc Ford. Inspired in part by John Wayne, he's led an extraordinarily adventurous life, and we are very lucky that he shared some of his stories with us on the John Wayne Gritcast. Be sure to check out his latest book, Salt River, and enjoy. Randy.
It's himself, Captain Ethan Wayne. Delightful to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too. We had a little technical difficulty here this morning.
Thank God. Thank you.
I want a borrowed computer, and the camera is not doing me any justice.
I'm telling you what, you're one good-looking hombre. You're a good-looking man, my friend. Don't stop whining about your looks and your hair to me.
Well, it's fun to finally get to talk to you. It's been a long time.
Too long.
Are we recording, Katie? Yeah. Okay, good. We're on. We're recording, so we're just going. Are you in Sanibel?
No, I lease a defunct gun club, Central Florida, about an hour and a half from Sanibel. Got 500 acres, rifle range, pistol range, just me, the deer, the turkeys, the feral hogs, and the coyotes and bobcats. It's great.
Man, unlock the gate. I'm coming over.
It is unlocked. Come on over, man.
That's really cool.
I just got a new Marlin 94C lever 357 rifle. Ethan, I just shot about 30 rounds. I could not hit a hockey goalie if he was tied to a tree. It's embarrassing. It's got to be the rifle, man. I'm telling you.
So wait, you're just not hitting anything with the brand new gun?
Nothing.
I've got one
target 50 yards, a gong 50 yards, and I've got another target 155 yards. I can't hit anything. I hit the ground once. I saw the dirt fly.
I grew up around guns, obviously with my dad. We had guns around the house, loaded guns, on his nightstand in different places. A lot of movie sets, a lot of shooting. But in 92, I think it was, I went to a camp with this gentleman, Colonel Jeff Cooper. He was a fan of the model 1911. And it was a 6-day long course just outside of Prescott, Arizona. And one, I was shocked at how much I didn't know once I started that course. And then two, by the end of that course, 6 days, it's just becomes part of it's just another hand. You just have a hand that shoots. And I felt like I could just pretty much hit anything. I felt really good. And then all the years go by. In my head, I'm still that guy that was in Arizona, but it's been 20-something years now. And I just started shooting again, and my old 45, it just has, the sights are just gunmetal color. There's no white dot or anything on them.
It's very
now my eyes are so bad, I can't focus on the front sight anymore. I can't even see it. So I bought a Glock, and the Glock has a nice pair of sights on it. So I'm back to hitting what I'm trying to hit again.
Well, I wish I could say the same. What I do, I've got the same. I wear cheaters like this. Yeah. These aren't safety glasses. So I buy safety glasses bifocals, and I put them on upside down so I can use it's pathetic. I mean, it's humiliating. But with the bifocal, I can see the front sight focus.
Wow. Yeah, it's a challenge, and it's a challenge I didn't realize I was having until I got back on the range, and I just thought, man, I can't even. It was an indoor range. We have a new indoor range here called the Hot Rods and Handguns, and the guy's done a really cool thing. We don't have a lot of open space left in Orange County, and he built a 50,000-foot building that he used to run his construction operation out of, and I think he's got 16 lanes that are all high tech, and they can deliver different scenarios to you. But he also has a coffee bar and a couple restaurants, and he's got a John Wayne saloon called Duke's Legendary Saloon with beautiful pool tables and some other games in there. He's got a cigar smoking room that has, incredible air filtration and a big collection of hot rods throughout and guitars throughout, old motorcycles throughout. And then he loves the 1911, Colt 45. So he has a huge collection of those that you can actually go and shoot if you like. And then he's got a gun store where you can buy guns and ammo, and they make it kind of a one-stop shop. They make it easy for you. It's a membership club. So
This is California you're talking about?
he got it done here in California.
Surprised you're allowed to smoke cigars out there. Not that I smoke, I don't. But,
Yeah, not an easy task, but a cool place. And if you get out this way, we'll go by there and tear it up a little bit. I mean, I've been calling you for 10 years, probably.
more. You missed my birthday, by the way.
Sorry.
I know yours is this month. I know that.
Mine is this month. Yeah. When's yours?
June.
June.
Don't worry about June. Well, June 9th. Don't worry about the no card thing. I'm not easily hurt. I got broad shoulders.
Okay. Next year, you're getting a card.
Yeah.
You probably get a visit.
That I would welcome. You'd be most welcome.
Yeah, I'd love to come down there. We started this podcast because we were trying to find a way to just capture stories related to John Wayne from people who knew him. So that's how it started. We're losing people every day. Yesterday, we lost a guy named Lester Bayless, who was my dad's costumer on about 12 movies and was really part of the family. And so the stories and things are just disappearing. And this podcast started as a way to try and preserve some of that. But it's led us down different roads. And you're obviously somebody that we're excited to talk to. One, because I came across your books without knowing there was any connection to John Wayne or that you were a big fan of John Wayne. But in reading a couple of your novels, I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I gotta reach out to this guy and see if this is.
You and my sons are the only ones who know the derivative of the Doc Ford name. Doc Ford, a marine biologist who has a mysterious and dark connected past. But you're the only one who knows the real story. I've never revealed that.
Oh, really?
Why not reveal it to you? Why not? Well, I revealed it because you asked me. You're the only one who's ever asked me.
Well, I don't want to make you say something you're not comfortable talking about. But if you want to talk about it.
I'm not talking about. So I'd been a fishing guide on Sanibel Island, the west coast of Florida, for 13 or 14 years. Did more than 3,000 light tackle charters. In the meantime, I was working hard at learning the craft of writing. I always wanted to be a writer. Grew up in rural areas, fell in love with books, did not go to college. At this little marina, Tarpon Bay on Sanibel, the federal government came to us in, I think, November, said we're closing Tarpon Bay, this body of water on which I was a fishing guide. We're closing Tarpon Bay to powerboat traffic. I was out of a job, Ethan. Yeah. I'm not qualified to do anything except drive boats. So I thought, I'd been working it right. I thought, I need to write a novel. I had two young sons, still do. At the time, they were 8 and 10 years old. And this novel has to be good. So I came up with this character, a marine biologist, with this unusual, much-traveled, clandestine past. And I had been a columnist for Outside Magazine, so I traveled to all these far-flung places, Southeast Asia, Cuba, Africa, Central South America, every bad place in the world. So I thought, a marine biologist, okay, yeah, that's good. Very pragmatic marine biologist, tough guy. Former high school wrestler. What should his name be? Went through a list. And then my father, state trooper, a lovely guy, quiet, smart. His favorite movie of all time was The Quiet Man. Bum, 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 Mm-hmm. I thought, Ford. After the director, Ford. What about a first name? Marion. It's so unlike any other, it's not like Butch or Bullet or Marion Ford. Yeah, that works. And Ethan, it has worked. It's just been an amazing ride for me. And that was 1989. I'm old, long time.
89.
Yeah,
Yeah.
before you were born.
Well, you started writing. You didn't go to college. You
No.
went out on your own. You were a hands-on guy. And then books and writing kind of saved you. I was, once my father was sick and once he passed, I was a junior in high school. And I've gone to a private school or been sort of tutored by guys on location with my father, had a lot of interest in subjects, had a lot of interest in projects and different things, and understanding how things worked or why I might want to learn something if it related to, a stunt or an airplane or how horses do something, or, then I had an interest. But once I got to high school, it was just dry and I couldn't, they didn't keep my attention. But the English teacher would read us, he'd spend one day a week reading a novel to us. It was called Uncle Bill's Story Hour. I don't know if he called it that or we called it that, Bill Wakeman. But he rekindled my interest in stories that I'd gotten from my father. And I started reading. And your books are a great example of something that a young person can read and get real life information from. One, situational information about how they could behave if they were in a situation that happened in your book, or just the information surrounding being around the water or being around a firearm or fishing or whatever these adventures are that you put the characters in. There's real information that your readers take away from that, real factual information. You're not making things up on how a boat or a motor works or how tides work or how a seaplane works. This is all real information. And I think it's great for young people to read these things because it sparks an interest in their mind and then they go in that direction. That's how it worked for me. And even though I was a little bit older by the time I got to your books, they have the same effect on me. I love reading things that are, you can tell you've handled boats. You can tell you've been around the water. You can tell you've been in situations just by reading your stories. So it's like maybe it's fiction, but there's a reality base to it or a factual base to it.
I read the same way. I read to learn. A good story is terrific, a lot of fun, but I read to learn. And I learned long ago as a writer, if a reader catches you in a factual error, be it fiction or nonfiction, you lose a good deal of your credibility. So I take the research for my novels very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm lucky enough to have friends who actually are experts in various things, such as marine biology and seaplane.
Great for you too, to be able to share all this stuff with your friends, right?
It is. It's what a wave, man. Born under a lucky star.
Yeah, and shared it. And what did I just hear? Jordan Peterson said something that was really interesting. It was like there's no difference between thinking and writing, and that to write, if you're going to write, it makes you a critical thinker because you have to think through.
You have to
the whole process or the whole situation or the whole idea, and it made me think back when I thought about talking to you, and then I heard Jordan Peterson say that. When I'm in a situation when I need clarity, I just start writing it out. And then I can move things around until I can get the picture in my head, and then I can get mental clarity around something or a situation. So it's a noble craft, and it makes me want to engage in it more because I never have.
You should.
Eulogizing a friend or writing a letter or something like that. And it takes me a very long time to do that. I eulogize a friend 10 years ago, and I remember getting the news and then being asked, and I just had to stop everything else in my life and sit down and go through the pain. It was really painful for me to go through that process and make sure I got something down that I wanted to say or that I wanted to share.
But you got it down, and I'm going to tell you something most people don't.
Well,
they don't go through that trauma. They won't go through the work it takes. and particularly a eulogy. I've written a couple, and it's just
Stop.
bawling like a baby. And,
Yeah.
but
So
thinking is hard, and it's just writing has never gotten easier. It's just a pain in the rump. It's pushing a boulder up the mountain.
to this day, it's still that way for you.
Has not changed a whit.
Oh.
I do wish I'd learned how to type.
I was going to ask you, do you have like I remember I took typing in high school and I was like A, S, D, F. Are you a home key or a hunter and a pecker?
Well, I'm a two-finger typist. If I ever lose these two fingers, I'm not going to hold up the two I use because that would be indelicate. But if I lose those two fingers, it's back to the bread line for me, pal.
And how do you have a paper and pencil that you might sketch things down, or do you record things on a?
I wish I could record. I've met people who say they can record their books. I don't see how that's possible. For me, it's a feel for the sentence, certain rhythms, not just sentences with blocks of paragraphs. And I'm not that articulate of a speaker. And no, it's a feel. Hunter S. Thompson, whom I knew, the brilliant writer from Louisville, Kentucky, where his mother was a librarian, and a funny guy, and tragically lost him too early. He wrote for Rolling Stone. But he told me his mother was a librarian in Louisville, Kentucky, and he would go to the library and he would take out a favorite book and he would get a yellow legal pad and he would write down certain favorite paragraphs verbatim to get the feel or the flow of the language. And when he told me that, I got goosebumps because I've done the same thing.
Really?
It's a feel, it's a mysterious process, I'll say that. And when
interesting.
When I've done it at my best, it's thrilling, and I've done it at my worst, and I just think somebody ought to kick me right in the butt. And I throw it away.
When you're writing a book, like I just started Salt River last night. I set it on 30 minutes and I fell asleep within like the first 2 minutes. Sorry.
Put more people to sleep. It's actually a compliment.
No, the book didn't put me to sleep. I was tired yesterday. So I'm excited to get into that. But I got off track. What was I going to ask you? Can you just sit down? I'm just going to write from 9 to whatever, and then all the ideas come to you then? Or are you out on a boat and an idea hits you and you got to preserve it somehow? Because I would forget. I get ideas all day long and then I lose them.
A combination of both. Writing for me is a job, necessarily so. People, they still ask me, what's my motivation? And my reply is flippant, but it certainly was true at the time. Particularly when my sons were young and my tarpon baby marine closed, my response was, well, every month I look at my bills, and that's my motivation. And to a degree, that's true. I wanted to write books that had some literate, maybe even literary value, but I also wanted to write books that had a good story, fast-moving storyline to entertain, because I had to make a living, and still do.
Yeah.
So it's a rare day I don't write. It's usually 7 days a week, 360 days a year, something like that. And I write every word. If I don't, no one else is. So I really have no choice. It's a lovely situation to be in, frankly. That when you have to do something, when you have deadlines. A deadline is as big a pain in the rump as they can be. What a motivator. You have to do it. And some of the best stuff I've written was because I had to. And there was no choice. And then if that makes no sense, so be it.
Wow. Well, that's quite a talent to be able to knock that out, because your books are, for me, they're great. I love all the adventure. I also listened to an interview where you were telling somebody that you never, and this was odd for me and I never thought about it. You said you never described Doc Ford, what he looked like. But I have a complete picture of Doc Ford in my mind. And
just like you, maybe.
No, it's not. It's not. But I love the fact that I have that in there. And then you said that you do describe Tomlinson, and that he was based on Bill Spaceman Lee, who's a friend of yours. And Tomlinson's a great character. I really enjoy him. But it's funny because I had a very clear picture of Doc Ford, and I think a lot of people do. That you build that story, and then our imagination builds the character. He's in there.
Well, that's the genius. That's the wonder of the written word. The reader, it's a direct brain conduit between two solitary minds, the writer and the reader. The reader plays a gigantic role of creating the characters in her or his own head. And so Doc Ford is rarely described. Now, other characters may describe him as they see him, but as the author, I've seldom described him or any of the characters. There's an aside to that we should talk about privately, particularly in these strange times when people have to be certain, fill in the blank, and that has to be made known. And I don't do that. I try.
Are your stories, do they all come from you, or is there ever pressure from on high that says, hey, can you add this or take away this?
No, I've been so fortunate in having good or great editors, and here's what I think a good editor, professional editor, can do for a writer, a competent writer. She or he can tell you, okay, this part's boring, or the whole darn thing is boring, or this makes no sense to me. I don't find this believable. Okay, you really lost me here. Other than that, they can't help you much, Ethan.
Wow.
And I do book signings all over the country, and people will say, well, does your editor do a lot of the writing for you? No, thank God. That's not her or his job. That's my job. I say sometimes, and I believe it, that there are fewer really good editors than there are really good writers.
That's got to be a tough relationship. I mean, you'd have to find somebody, and you'd never want to let go of that editor once you guys figured out how to work together.
I've had a couple of great ones, particularly at Outside Magazine, founded by Rolling Stone. Major break for me as a young man when I was a fishing guide, and when Rolling Stone started Outside Magazine, which is still going on. I'm still an editor at large there. They got the best stylist in terms of writers in the country to write for them. Hunter S. Thompson was one. Thomas McWayne, brilliant writer. Jim Harrison, Peter Matheson, Edward Abbey, Jimmy Buffett.
Wow.
And I published a story the first year of the magazine. I thought, golly, maybe all this, maybe I can do this. So I had some terrific editors there. Yeah.
Wow. And that's where it started with when they closed that bay, you were able to write for some magazines. That's what got the writing.
I had just broken in a writing firm, also an acting firm, just broken in with Outside Magazine shortly before the arena closed. Thank goodness. And I thought, by golly, I can do this. If Outside Magazine, if they're calling me on the phone and asking me to go to Australia or South Africa, or, I can do this.
And why were they called? What did you do for them that made them go no, he's going to Panama, or he's going to?
You know what, Ethan? I paddled a canoe from Sanibel Island on the west coast of Florida down to the Florida Keys, and only a fool would do that. It was the first year the magazine came out, 1978, I think. Went through 3 partners. We parted amicably, well, 2 of them anyway, and wrote a story about it and just sent it into the magazine. And I realized later they get hundreds, maybe thousands of submissions. And usually they're college kids in the reading room. They go through these things. But somebody picked this story out, gave it to Terry McDonald, who was the editor at that time, brilliant editor. Went on to become the editor of Esquire, Sports Illustrated. And Terry McDonald, a very gruff guy. He's been on Saturday Night Live. He's one of those big time New York people. He called me at the marina at noon. It's the only time they could get us before cell phones. And I got paged by the marina owner, Mac, Randy, there's a call for you in the office. I'm going, wow, one of my clients maybe. Terry McDonald's on the phone. He goes, I'm Terry McDonald, editor of Outside Magazine. You wrote this piece about canoeing? I went, yeah. He goes, we can't use this. I went, oh, well, thanks for calling. And he said, no, you don't realize. He saw something, Ethan. He said, I want you to try a story on backcountry Florida, which I did. And it was in the first, published the first year of the magazine.
Wow.
Then if a month or two went by, he would call me, hey, Randy, what? He saw something, man. But no, I came out of nowhere. It was
incredible. So they never used the canoeing story, but that just sparked an interest in you.
Yeah. I think you nailed something early on. You were talking about the difficulties of writing, where you actually have to think things through. And I think to write originally, you really have to call upon that process, that thinking process. You have to think things through in your original way. And that comes through in good writing, I hope. But he saw something. Anyway, it's worked out swell. I'm glad that darn marina closed.
Wow. Now, separate from writing and fishing guides, how did you get into all these different adventurous situations, like getting attacked in a hotel in Peru?
Got stabbed in the back and shot at a couple times. Yeah, man.
So you're stabbed and shot at. I think 50 or 60 people were killed in that attack.
58 people. Yeah, it was tragic.
And this is in Peru, where my mother's from. I have a lot of family down there in Peru.
Pilar.
Yeah.
I use that name, and yeah.
Once I got to Pilar, I'm like, I'm writing this guy.
Are you sure we're not related somehow? You're better looking and much younger, but who knows? With my uncles, there's no telling. But
my mother, Pilar, is still around. She's 93. She lives on her own. She's doing terrific.
I've yet to listen to your interview with her, but I will. And I've enjoyed and I've just started your podcast. It's you're terrific on TV, man. You're on the screen. You should be in Hollywood.
Maybe I'll go back one day. Thank you. I was fun to talk to my mother. She had stories that I just wasn't aware of. Things about her life that I just didn't know. Really interesting woman and very interesting life. But back to you. Why are you in a hotel in rural Peru during an attack?
I didn't plan it out. I was writing for Outside Magazine, and ultimately Outside named me the monthly columnist. Gigantic for a guy from a farm who got straight C's in high school. And there were times I would literally spin a globe in I never had an office until recently, whatever closet I was working in. And I would touch the globe, and if there was a revolution going on there, so much the better, I would go.
Really?
And I would always carry a fishing rod, because I learned early on that even when driving or biking through a revolution, if the good guys or bad guys see that you're carrying a fishing rod, they just think you're a simpleton idiot and harmless, and then go on, vamos, gringo. And I would always carry a fishing rod. But I took the train from Lima, perhaps where your mother's from.
Yep.
The pig and chicken train, they called it, up into the Andes, went up over 16,000 feet high. Even the Indios were getting sick. Altitude sickness.
Yeah.
I didn't get sick, it just made me mean. It just meaner. And arrived in this little village called Huancayo, Peru.
Yeah.
Accidentally, if there are accidents or coincidences, it was having its 256th celebration of being a village of Huancayo. And had a little village square. There were llamas, people playing the flutes. And I thought, well, this is going to be fun. Well, it wasn't. That night, an organization called Sendero Luminoso, the Shining Path, attacked the village. And about dusk, I was walking down an empty street. Sidewalks elevated way above the streets because they would flood after the snows. And two guys came up behind me, and one of them stabbed me right in the back. And fortunately, got part of my notebook. I was wearing one of those vests. Went back to my hotel. There's another story behind that. We'll talk about it privately. Went back to my hotel, and I'm trying to clean up. I'm trying to, address this wound in my back. And I hear kaboom, boom. And then I hear automatic weapons fire.
Oh, shit.
All the lights all go off in the village, and the attack was on. It went on several hours. Part of our hotel was blown up. The guard at the entrance of the hotel door. This is not the Hyatt. This is one of the hotels where the toilet has a place for your feet and you squat. And the guard got shot in the stomach, and intense. But it was, what an education. I traveled through Guatemala during various.
Just random. You picked a place to go, and you happened to walk into a shining path.
Exactly.
Something.
Yeah, there are other stories to that I can talk about privately.
All
But Guatemala, went through revolutions there. It was in Panama during the invasion of Panama. In fact, I think the statute of limitations are up. I have the big bronze plaque from Manuel Noriega's wall outside his house at home. It must weigh 40 pounds.
Do you have it?
Yeah, I got it. I'll send you a picture.
Oh my gosh.
I've got the, I don't know if I should say this. Yeah, I'll go. I have an embassy sign taken from Panama. I'm not going to say which embassy. The shield, one of those shields. You've probably been to consulates or embassies. I've got one of the shields, and anyway. But yeah, what an education. And so I try to incorporate that stuff into my novels.
Oh, you have for sure. For sure. So, I mean, what an adventurous life. You were out trying to find stories to write about, and you just wanted to experience life and find other things that were going on and then bring those stories home.
Yeah.
Okay.
As my editor, might have been Terry McDonald or John Rasmus at Outside, I asked, it was John Rasmus, I asked him, I said, I'm curious, when you started this magazine, you had all these great writers, and McGuane and Harrison, Edward Abbey, Peter Matheson. Why did you all choose me? And he said, well, Randy, we had so many really good writers. We thought, why not get, some tobacco chewing redneck and just, Gomer Pyle and send him out. And,
did you ever meet Edward Abbey?
Never met him, no, but he wrote for the magazine. Never met Jim Harrison. Hunter S. Thompson, met Thomas McGuane. I've met brilliant writer. Peter Matheson, one of my dearest, closest confidants for 40 some years. A Zen Buddhist priest, went to Ivy League school, recruited by the CIA, which is probably the only reason Peter Matheson did not win the Nobel Prize. And that's true, tragically. People see it as a stigma now, but.
Look him up, Peter Matheson.
Peter Matheson wrote a book, well, he wrote a number, but wrote a book called Far Tortuga, which is unlike any novel you've ever read. So beautifully lyrical. And I'm turning off the AC here, so you don't get that background line. But anyway, it's a wonderful education, and much blessed, and then started writing novels full time, and it's been amazing.
You've also done, I heard a story where you borrowed somebody's boat, like a 55-foot boat, and ran out and helped some Cuban refugees not drowned or.
Nope, 1980 during the Mariel Harbor boat lift.
1980, really? Okay.
Yeah, I'm old. Fidel Castro in Cuba, for whatever reason, complex reasons, said to the Cuban people, okay, if you want to leave so badly, you can leave. All you have to do is sign this paper, giving up everything you have. And if a boat comes and picks you up, get the heck out. And President Carter at that time said, we welcome them with open hearts and open arms. And personally, I adore President Carter. Very troubled, well, I guess all times are troubled political times. I had a Cuban American friend whose family had been separated in New Year's Eve 1958 when Fidel marched in Havana. The mother, the father, the sister, the brother were separated into two halves. The mother and the daughter came to the US. The father, the brothers had to stay in Cuba. So I went back to get my friend's grandfather and uncle. That was it.
Wow.
Got a 55-foot boat, ran it from Key West, well, actually ran it from Fort Myers Beach to Key West, then to Mariel Harbor. Cuba was in Mariel Harbor for about 12 days. It was freaky, existential, dangerous. The harbor sealed off by gunboats. And on the 12th day, they called our boat, a 55-foot grouper boat. You have the Nordic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the length of that vessel?
Nordic is 56 feet at the waterline, and then she's 67 feet overall. And I was going to do the podcast from it this morning, but my friend Joe took it to Catalina early. So,
You're an interesting man.
but it's a steel bottomed boat, you know, the hull steel, and then the house is glass over plywood, built in 72.
Well, I ran a 55-foot grouper boat, slightly smaller than your boat, and they loaded us up with 147 refugees.
Wow.
147 refugees with one head, one bathroom, one toilet.
But wait, you went in and you were in harbor for 12 days, you said?
Yeah.
In a
Yeah.
Cuban harbor. So there was a lineup to collect some people, like, hey, these people have signed?
In a nation of 10 million people, 2 million adults signed that paper just on the chance of getting out of Cuba. And once in Mariel Harbor, you really had no choice about who you took back. And they loaded our boat, 147 people, and I mean, elbow to shoulder to. It was.
I don't know how you get that many people in a 55-foot boat. That's packed.
They did. I did a head count when they loaded up. They made us wait at the mouth of the harbor till sunset. We took off, immediately got caught in a big storm, did a head count when we 27 hours later arrived at Key West. I did a head count as people went off. They all made it.
Wow.
And when we raised Key West, it was at sunset.
Are you going with the swell when you're going from Cuba to Key West, or are you going against?
Well, the Gulf Stream runs from west to east and then north, but then you have, when you had those squalls, this was in June. Usually those squalls come out of the northeast or northwest, so you have colliding tide, you know.
Yeah.
Miserable.
How unstable was that boat with that much weight on it?
It was like driving a ox cart.
Wow. I can't imagine, Randy. I mean,
but at sunrise, when these Cubans, after this horrific trip, realized they were seeing Key West, they took up this chant, Libertad, Libertad, Liberty.
Can you imagine, like, after, people from Cuba, I love them. They realize the opportunity that exists here, right?
They do.
And who was it? Somebody said, I don't know if it was Reagan or somebody, that freedom's one generation away from being lost. And obviously we're seeing some rough times here right now with our neighbors to the north and in other places in the world, and even here at home. But the Cubans, they're clear. Freedom is important. There's no doubt, if you talk to a Cuban, that what's going on is not right and that we should not accept it.
Eastern Europeans as well. It's I'm still very involved with Cuba. I've done documentaries, and I'm a Freemason, as was your father.
Yeah.
I'm a member of the Masonic Lodge in Havana, and so I have a lot of friends there.
Of Havana, the Masonic Lodge of Havana. That's so cool. Wow. That is really neat. You do all this crazy stuff. You end up in Sanibel, a place that you know well. I think you've described your home. I'm sure it's an incredible place to live. And I'm sure it's a place that you had seen and had your eye on for a while or something. But you live in a unique spot. It's on a burial ground or some kind of historic land.
It's on 60 acres of National Archaeological Preserve. My old house, one of the oldest in Lee County, it was built up on the remnants of what was probably a shell pyramid, and backed by ceremonial courtyards, canals, and burial mounds, built by contemporaries of the Maya, the Olmec, the Aztec, ancient place. And you're welcome. I don't live there anymore. It just, too many people knew I lived there.
I see.
But you're welcome. I wish no one's staying. You should come and stay. It's a magnificent, wonderful place. And yeah, I've been lucky.
Are you still in that area, or have you gone somewhere else to live?
I'm still in that area. We live in San.
Okay.
My wife's Wendy Webb. She's a singer-songwriter. We went to the same high school. I got held.
Get to Wendy, and I didn't realize that you guys went to the same high school together.
I got held back several times. It worked out swell. She's stunning. Wendy Webb, W-E-B-B, B as in Bravo, B as in Bravo. But so,
yeah, I love her music.
Thank you.
I don't know if she categorizes her music as, it's just, as music evolves, it changes, and I think it leaves certain generations behind. And I like some current music, but I've really been left behind. Like I'm a 70s kind of person, but when I listen to Wendy sing and play, it's an appealing sound to me, and I don't know how else to describe it.
Well, thanks so much for that. As I tell people, and I'm stealing a line from Joe Gary Joel, the baseball player. I tell people when they mention Wendy Webb and her music, my wife, I say, most New York Times best-selling novelists, at the very least, they're the best writer on their block. I'm not even the best writer in my house.
That's a very nice thing to say.
That's true.
There was something else. Have you ever read anything by Max Hardberger? You ever cross paths with Max Hardberger?
No, I've not.
I think he was. He wrote something called Freighter Captain, and I'm not sure it was actually even published. But he was like a mid-size cargo ship repo guy. And some good adventures, and was down by you. And I all day I was thinking, I wonder if they ever crossed paths. I wonder if you ever met this guy.
Man. You want to carry some firearms in that business? I would think.
Yeah, no kidding. So that was just something I was wondering myself. And we went through Tomlinson. Wendy, is she performing a lot now, or is she staying home?
She performs rarely. She just performed at the Bluebird in Nashville.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they love her there. And she would more often perform at the Bitter Inn in Greenwich Village, famous place. But now, since the plague, everything's gone strange. And
yeah, I had the plague, and I am unvaccinated, and I got the plague in July, and it was like having a good flu. It was not fun. All I took was Robitussin, and I survived. But
looking swell. There is something I wanted to touch on, if you don't mind. I've got to push my desk back for this. And you recognize this sign?
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
This is the back of the sign. Here.
Wow.
You can tell it's a movie prop.
Yeah. That's fantastic. That's right off the Quiet Man set, huh?
It is. And I was riding a bike through Ireland, up the west coast through a village, came down this hill into the village of Cong, C-O-N-G.
Yep.
And had the ancient Gaelic crosses and the cobbled streets, the little white chapel. I thought, golly, this looks familiar. and I got a little cheap room there to stay, and I'm walking around. This is just deja vu. What? How? And then someone told me they filmed The Quiet Man there in Ashford Castle, which is right next to Kong. That was my father's favorite movie, the 101st Airborne State Trooper. I'm going, this is incredible. This is incredible. And didn't have a phone, so I couldn't even call my dad. And so I'm going around to these little shops that I recognized, and the place that Mr. Ford, John Ford, used as the pub was a candy store.
Right.
And I went into and I said, did they film some of The Quiet Man here? There was an older gentleman. He said, they did. Mr. Wayne and Mr. McLachlan, he pronounced it different. And Mr. McLachlan, they'd come into the village sometimes and they'd drink the poteen whiskey, the potato whiskey. Lad, we had to drag him back to the castle, body and bones. And he said, and I was in the film. You were in the film? I was. I was in the fight scene. I'm in the white shirt. I'm holding men back. And he's there.
Wow.
And so I said, do you have anything left over from the movie? He said, no. That was a long time ago. The next day, Ethan, I walk out, he goes, sir, I found something up in the attic. It was this sign. And I said, would you sell it? And he goes, well, I'd hate to sell it to you, but I couldn't give it to you for free. I gave him $100, which to me was a lot of money at that time. And I carried it all over Ireland on a freaking bicycle.
Wow.
What a treasure. And I still have him on cassette tapes somewhere in my attic, which I need to find, but I just wanted to show you that. I thought
that's an incredible story. You know, it's funny, like, I knew my dad just as my dad, right? As a kid, you don't really know. You just don't know. You know, as a child, you don't get it. It's not. It's just not front and center. Like I love my dad. We had a lot of fun together. But you know, as you get older, then you watch The Quiet Man as a grown man, and you go, God damn it, that's a really good film.
You were in it, or was it your brother Patrick?
No, I wasn't. I don't think I was born yet. Patrick and Michael and Melinda were all there, and I think Tony. So my older brothers and sisters were there, but I wasn't. And then there have been opportunities. I was invited to go over and do this whole thing, and something happened, and I couldn't go. So my brother Patrick and my sister Marisa went, and said it was people welcomed them with open arms, and they just had a great time, and they showed them everything, and they got to see all the stuff. And Patrick obviously remembered things, and just had a wonderful time. I was on a lot of movie sets, but they were usually in Durango, Mexico. So somewhere down there, they had a little movie village set up. And New Mexico and Colorado and different places, but I wasn't around for that one. But as I get older, like I have an interest in you and your work and your characters because I enjoy them. I'm starting to look at my father differently. I didn't come to him as an audience member watching the movies. That was sort of dulled by the fact that he was my dad on the backside. I didn't focus on that very much. But as I get older, and because I lost him when I was 17, I can go back to that front side and then absorb some of those life lessons that I didn't get directly from him. And that, I had a lot of stumbles and a lot of trips, and I hit my head on a lot of stuff as a young man. And I probably could have avoided a lot of that had I watched and paid attention to some of my father's films. Because the messages are so clear about even basic things like your wealth and your worth. What's more important? And these basic sort of character studies when you're looking at yourself or making decisions. as a young guy. Always, I wish I'd looked back to some of his messages that he left us as as a people. And I wish I could talk to him about the difference between him and his characters, because right now it'd be so interesting for me to be able to hear, and I think for all of us, like what where's the separation, where's the difference, there's a lot of interesting questions that we could ask them. Maybe they'll be able to get a piece of DNA out of us, and we'll be able to get back and get answers from our parents through a molecule.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure our fathers bumped their heads quite often as well, and maybe none of us know our fathers. I didn't know mine.
Yeah.
We never had any huge shouting matches, or he was in the 101st Airborne, World War II. And I do remember in high school, and he was a state trooper, asking me, I said, Dad, World War II, and he had his jump boots up in the attic and the Screaming Eagle, but he didn't, it was all that attic. That was in the attic, that was past. I said, so World War II, Germany, what was that like? I mean, I know we won, but how was it over there? He said, well, son, in Germany, they had this really good black bread and this really good cheese. We'd trade our sea rations and cigarettes for it. And that was it.
Wow.
That was my dad. So maybe none of us know our fathers. Maybe for the best. I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows?
Read a lot about your father and your family, and over the word iconic is used. Certainly fitting, but it's become such an overly used word. I was thinking about that. I get up very early this morning. I thought, no, your father was a pivotal character in the 20th century. Iconic, that's Madonna or somebody that I don't care about, but he was a pivotal character in almost a solar system way. A mindset, an ethic, perceived or real, I don't know, but I got from the movies that a solar character around which this very decent life ethic revolved as a symbol, and very valuable, very valuable. So.
Yeah. And John Wayne's an amalgamation of all the great qualities of the people who led us west and helped build America, right? What's the saying? Hard men create soft times create soft men create hard times. And I feel like maybe generationally, that was the, if you look at the influence that somebody has on screen or on the internet or whatever you want to call that, John Wayne was an aspirational character, somebody that we could look up to, somebody who chose worth over wealth a lot of the time, or always had a pretty solid, north on his moral compass. Somebody you could count on to make the right decisions. And now we have all these great productions and all these great stories and all these things on Showtime or HBO, like magnificent productions, but the characters end up taking a nosedive. And so we don't have a lot of the characters, there that we can look up to and say, no, it's okay to it's okay to pick up that piece of trash, even if everybody's looking at me like I'm an idiot for cleaning the place up, or trying to leave it better than I found it, or sticking up for the little guy, or just all the things that we as a people were known for being. Like, the world looked at us. We led the world. We inspired them to be better. And I think John Wayne did that not only for us, but for the world for 60 years.
Well, I agree. As we both know, there are a number of people who would stridently disagree. It's a curious polarity and maybe out of balance. I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of people would disagree. And frankly, I don't care.
I just wonder if we've gotten a little soft as a unit. People forget like what your father did in World War II. He never forgot. That was not an easy time for anybody on this side or that side.
No side. Same with the conquest of this continent.
Yeah.
There's no easy side.
No easy side. There's no clear. How do you go back? How do you go back and go, this was right, this was wrong? Yeah, some things were right and some things were wrong.
Hindsight.
Hindsight's 2020. But as a country, even if we've been flawed, we've always strove to become better and to correct the things that we've gotten wrong. And I don't know if any other country has done a good job of that as we have.
I would agree. In all my travels, and again, to some of the worst places in the world, and people would tell me, well, don't tell them you're an American. They hate Americans. Ethan, I've been every bad place. I didn't go to Europe. Maybe it's true in Europe. I don't know anything about Europe, but other places in the world, Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Africa, Central South America, Cuba, they love Americans. Mm-hmm. They love Americans. They do. And people would tell me occasionally, well, when I travel, I wear a Canadian jacket. I'm going, why? Carry a fishing pole. We'll just assume you're a fool. It won't bother you. But, I've never
start carrying a fishing pole. That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
I've never had any anti-American whatsoever, ever, none ever.
Nor have I. And it seems like the worse place you go, the more people appreciate that you're American.
They're
interested in it because they're living under the thumb of somebody else, and they don't have the rights that we have.
All right. But you and I ought to go to Cuba together. And
you say it, I'll be there. It's going to take me 5 hours to get to you.
We actually do dock forward Cuba tours. This is not an ad because I don't make a cent from it. I don't want to. Dock forward Cuba Expeditions. It's on the internet. My nephew runs it. He's the head of a Spanish department for Florida Atlantic University. And we started doing dock forward tours about 2 years before the plague came. And for the first time in their lives, my friends in Cuba are making money.
Wow.
The licensed Cuban government and the US government. I don't make a cent. And it's the only tour I'm aware of. You don't have to do the Cuban government tour.
Wow. And
yeah, we should do.
I would go on that. And I did watch years ago. Now you're reminding me. What was was it a documentary when you guys went over there and played baseball?
Yeah, I used to take baseball teams to Cuba and sneak in baseball gear to kids. We still send baseball gear to kids.
Yeah, and then you guys would go around and you give them the baseball stuff. That was really cool. Gosh, I watched that when we first started communicating. It's been a while.
It's on YouTube. Gift of the Game. Gift of the Game. It's very funny.
Game. That's right. Okay.
The Cuban government was after us the whole time. They thought they'd stolen all our baseball gear. Nada. No, I had stuff hidden away. And so made a fun deal.
Randy, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. Share what you do. Share the connection between Marion Ford and John Wayne and John Ford and all the adventures that you've brought us on. It's really been a pleasure to read your work and to be able to spend time with you. As soon as I hang up tonight, I'm going to go back to Salt River.
I think it's one of my best books, but it's so nice seeing you. We got to get together.
I would really like it. And we didn't talk about Hannah Strait. We didn't talk about Will Chaser, who I love, by the way. So I don't know if they're in the book, but we can save that for another day. I appreciate you taking the time.
We'll meet again, my friend. Thank you very much.
See you, Randy.
Thank you so much for listening to the John Wayne Gritcast. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you like what you heard, give us 5 stars in the Apple Podcast app and follow us on social media at John Wayne Official.
Slap some bacon on a biscuit and let's go.